Good evening, my name is Deb Wenger, and I am an associate professor and director of undergraduate journalism in the Meek School of Journalism and New Media. Tonight I have the distinct pleasure of being your guide throughout a program to recognize some outstanding professionals and some outstanding professionals to be. So to give you sort of an order of service, we're going to first meet and honor the 2014 recipient of the Samuel Talbert Silver M Award. It is the highest honor for journalism that the University of Mississippi gives out. We're also going to meet the Taylor Medalists. The Taylor Medal is an award for the highest in academic achievement, and those students will actually be recognized tomorrow as well at a university-wide honors ceremony. In addition, we have several juniors and seniors in the room today who are receiving for the first time ever the Dean's Award, which recognizes accomplishments in the professions of journalism and integrated marketing communication among some of our top students. We're also going to present the Overby Award to the editor of the Daily Mississippian, and we're going to meet and induct the next class of Kappa Tau Alpha journalism scholars. And last but certainly not least, we will hear from our Silver M recipient. So before we begin the meal, I'd like to ask that the Dean of our school, Dr. Will Norton Jr., welcome you to the event.
You truly have already been welcomed, but we want to repeat that welcome and thank you for being here. When I first came to Ole Miss, it was a lot smaller journalism program. I believe that in some classes there were 10 or 12 graduating students, and now it's a school of 1,200 majors. So that's a lot different place, and it's a lot harder to teach a lot of students. This semester, for the first time, I'm teaching and doing a miserable job because there's so many people and I'm having trouble learning their names. It's really a delight, though, to have the outstanding stars here tonight. And what I want to do is recognize former Silver M Award winners. If you would all stand. Let me tell you who they were. They stood up and sat down so fast. Back table, Curtis Wilkie, Boston Globe, professor here. Jim Abbott, Indianola newspaper. Jerry Hoare, professor at Ole Miss for years and a prize-winning author. Charles Overby, Patsy Brumfield. Charles was with the Clarion Ledger, and Patsy has been with everybody. I tell puns when I'm not supposed to. Welcome.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, I will say. But let's go ahead and get started with the meal. We'd like to begin with our head table, followed by the family of our Silver M recipient. And then why don't we go ahead and start on this side of the room. And from then on, it's a free-for-all, so just get in there. So as we mentioned earlier, the University of Mississippi honors outstanding students for many different reasons and in many different ways. Tonight we're going to recognize a few folks who are receiving university honors tomorrow at the Gertrude Ford Center for Performing Arts. I'll ask our award recipients throughout this evening to please stand when I call your name. And remain standing until all the names are called so that we can give you all a round of applause at the same time. So, first I'd like to call your attention to the university's highest academic honor. This is the Marcus Elvis Taylor Medal. Only 1% of the more than 18,000 Ole Miss undergrads are eligible for this award. So this is truly an amazing recognition. Students must have a 3.9 or better GPA to even be considered for this award. This year, 2 Meek students will be receiving the Taylor Medal tomorrow night. They are Mary Daniel Simpson and Teresa Hendricks. like to mention that we have two other Taylor medalists from last year, Sarah Bracy Penn and Philip Waller, are also with us tonight. Congratulations. So we have several more students receiving awards tomorrow. Again, please stand. David Cole, who will be winning our Graduate Achievement Award in Journalism. They just wanted to honor you so quickly, but please still stand. Frank Williams Trapp, who will win a Graduate Achievement Award in Integrated Marketing Communications, as well as the Kappa Tau Alpha Journalism Honor Society Graduate Student Award. Hereafter, I hope you'll forgive me if I just call it KTA. In addition, we have Philip Waller winning the KTA Journalism Honor Society Undergraduate Student Scholar Award, Sarah Bracy Penn winning the KTA Journalism Honor Society Undergraduate Student Scholar Award, Austin Kent Miller winning the Kappa Tau Alpha Journalism Honor Society Graduate Student Scholar Award, Quentin Oliver Smith winning the Lambda Sigma Journalism Award, and we have Mary Daniel Simpson receiving Excellence in Integrated Marketing Communications Award, as well as Colton Harrington winning Excellence in Integrated Marketing Communications. And then we have Clancy Smith and Clara Turnage, both winning Excellence in Journalism Awards. Please join me in congratulating. In addition, we have students who are honored campus-wide in a couple of different areas. One is Who's Who and the University of Mississippi Hall of Fame. Those students received their awards and certificates in a January ceremony at the Ford Center. Our inductee into the Mississippi Hall of Fame this year is Philip Waller, one of only 10 students to receive this award. And there are an additional number of students who are part of our Who's Who for the University of Mississippi. They include Jared Boyd, Tisha Coleman, William Fowler, Teresa Hendricks, Shauna Mackenzie Hicks, Robert Lee, Robert Love, Kendall Noon, Sarah Bracy Penn, Courtney Richards, Mary Daniel Simpson, Clancy Smith, Philip Waller, and Ellen Whitaker. Please join me in congratulating them. Several years ago, an endowment was created to fund both a scholarship and an award for the person who serves as the editor-in-chief of the Daily Mississippian campus newspaper. This year's very able editor has been Lacey Russell. Lacey, if you would please come forward and receive your award from Assistant Professor Patricia Thompson, who is also the director of the Student Media Center, Dean Norton, and Charles Overby, a former DM editor himself and namesake of the Overby Center for Southern Journalism and Politics at the University of Mississippi.
Congratulations. Don't forget to Zoom.
We now come to the Meek School's Dean's Award. This is the first time ever that this award will be delivered, and it's limited, it's the top 1% of our undergraduate enrollment. And so these awards are essentially awarded by the faculty who nominate the recipients, and then the executive committee of the school makes the final selection. As your name is called, I would ask you to please come forward and receive your award from Dean Will Norton. Again, please hold your applause as I read all the names. So first, it's my honor to introduce the journalism honorees: Carson Brandenburg, Gabe Austin, Browning Stubbs, Anna E. McCullum, and Jared L. Boyd. And now I'd like to ask Assistant Professor, sorry, interrupted a moment there. Assistant Professor Scott Feeney, who heads up our undergraduate Integrated Marketing Communications program, to hand out the awards to the IMC honorees.
Thank you. And again, as your name is called, please come up to receive your award from the. So the IMC honorees are Victoria Berry, Taylor Davenport, William Fowler, Shay Gabrielle. Shay is actually not here tonight. He has a job interview in Atlanta. When he found out there was a conflict, he was asking, should he come here or should he go to the job interview? We said, you better go to the job interview. So, Bridge Lee, Daisy Martinez, and Allie Moore.
At this time, we're going to conduct an initiation for new members of Kappa Tau Alpha Journalism Honor Society. Associate Professor Jeannie Atkins, who is our chapter sponsor, will tell us about KTA and present the inductees. As your name is called, please come forward and stand in front of the head table and remain standing here while Dr. Atkins issues the induction pledge.
Good evening. Kappa Tau Alpha is 105 years old. It is the Journalism and Mass Communication Honor Society that recognizes academic excellence and promotes scholarship. Membership is a mark of high distinction. The Greek letters KTA mean knowledge, truth, and accuracy. The emblem is a gold key, which is a symbol of knowledge and communication, and the colors are light blue, symbolizing truth, and gold, emblematic of worth and high standards. Membership is by invitation only, and these are students who are in the top % of their class. You've already been introduced to the top scholars, so what we are doing now will be to induct the students who will be the class of 2015. And we will start with two of our graduate students, Austin Miller and Frank Trepp. And they will be receiving an honor cord, which they will wear at graduation, and a key, and a certificate. And Austin, don't forget your certificate. Frank, thank you very much. Congratulations. Taylor Davenport. And I would like all of you to remain standing, and there will be a pledge at the end, and then we will greet the class of 2015. Taylor Davenport. Madeline Friedman. Colton Harrington. Get this. Alea Kirk. She was not sure she could be here tonight because I think she had a class conflict. Cameron Class. Cameron. Daisy Martinez. Congratulations. Lila Radar. Congratulations. Quentin Smith. Laura Spites has an exam tonight, so she couldn't make it. And Madison Van Zyl. I dedicate myself to the highest ideals of journalism and communication. I dedicate myself to the highest ideals of journalism and communication. To liberty of communication. Liberty of communication. To honesty. Honesty. To fairness to all. And fairness to all. To skill and artistry. To skill and artistry. To accuracy. To accuracy. To truth. To truth. And I would like to ask all faculty to stand, and any members of KPA who are in the audience who haven't been already recognized. And the class of 2015.
And now we come to the presentation of the Samuel Talbert Silver M Award. This award was named for Dr. Talbert, a professor and department chairman who envisioned that a great journalism department would be an asset to the state of Mississippi. This award has been presented annually since 1948 as the university's highest honor for journalism. The requirements are that the person selected be a graduate of the University of Mississippi, who has had a noteworthy impact in our state, or if not a graduate of Ole Miss, a journalist of note who has been a difference maker in Mississippi. Tonight we're lucky because our honoree fulfills both of those tenets. We are pleased that the award will be presented by Charles Overby, a longtime journalist and leader in both journalism and journalism education, as well as a global advocate for freedom of expression. Mr. Overby?
Thank you, Deb. It's a high honor to be able to present this award to Fred Anklem, my good friend. You know, you all have this Silver M program there at your place. There was a time, starting in 1948 and going forward a few years, where this was a very clever play on words, M, E-M. Nobody knows what an M is anymore. You know, back then it was for a space, and also M being Mississippi. But we know what Mississippi is. We don't know what an M is anymore. So what this really should be, in addition to the Sam Talbert Silver M Award, is the Mississippi Journalist of the Year Lifetime Achievement Award. And that certainly is what Fred Anklem is. You know, I have been privileged. You've got his bio in there. It's pretty small type. I can't read it anymore, but hope y'all can. So I'm not going to try to give the play-by-play, but I would like to add a little color commentary on Fred's career. You know, he graduated from Ole Miss, and then he went down to the Clarion-Ledger. And that was at a time when the Clarion Ledger was hiring all these hot shots from around the country. It was before I got there. And so it was great that Fred was viewed in high enough terms to be hired there. And so he was hired, and he was working away, and I came there as the editor in 1982. And they had been working on this education reform bill. And so I'm going to come back to the Pulitzer Prize, but I'll just say that Fred impressed me long before he won the Pulitzer Prize. And he, if you really want to mess up somebody's career, give them a Pulitzer Prize at age 25. And it is remarkable that Fred remained grounded and was able to continue rather than just rest on his laurels. But he went up to Washington, and I was up in Washington and had the privilege of seeing him in action. And he worked for Gannett News Service, and then he went over and became the first full-time reporter for USA Today. And at that time, that was a big deal. And he covered the House of Representatives. You know, it all looks so clear now, but as you're thinking about how your students, how your career is going to unfold, and you look at what Fred has done and how he has succeeded and moved up constantly, you look back and say, well, how did he do it? How did you do it? No, no, he did it because he did the job he was doing at that time very well, which made people want to give him another job. And so far, the Peter Principle hadn't kicked in for Fred. And he was at the right place at the right time, but he was able to get where he was going, even really without knowing where he was going often, because people above him pulled him up. He's just the nicest guy. He's one of the 4 or 5 nicest journalists I know, and I have to say the other 3 or 4 are in this room tonight. And so all of you think you're in that category. But Fred, he had a major impact on our winning the Pulitzer Prize at the Clarion Ledger. There were 3 prongs to it: documenting through news coverage the sorry state of education in Mississippi. He went all over the state, spent 6 months doing an investigative report on that. Then the second leg of it was covering the legislature, its actions, and importantly, its inactions. And the third leg was the editorial part of it. And so Fred was the only person on the Pulitzer team who participated, was a big player in 2 of the legs. And without his work, it wouldn't have been a Pulitzer. But I wanted, we got a letter from the head of Gannett shortly after Fred and the team won the Pulitzer Prize. I can't read this, but I will read it. But he and I both get emotional about this. But the person wrote us this letter that said, "When all the hoopla is over, and when all the plaques are mounted on the wall, and everyone is back to normal, a couple of years down the road, a large number of little kids will trek off to school and begin the first kindergarten classes the state has provided. That will be the day the biggest prize of all will have been won." Fred won that prize for students, kindergarten and other students in Mississippi. It's a prize that continues to be his legacy. And so we're pleased tonight, Fred, to present you the Silver M Award.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First off, I'll say that speaking publicly is not my chosen profession, so please bear with me. But I've enjoyed, Charles and I now have shared gold with the Pulitzer Gold Medal. And he, as you know, is a previous Silver M honoree. So we have gold and silver. And I'm trying to think, what do we do for bronze, Charles? And it came to me, and I think you can take care of this. Because I think that we could reproduce the hug we made and the day we won the Pulitzer, which is on the front page of the paper. We could reproduce that in bronze and put it outside the Overby Center. What do you say? Then we'd have it all. I've worked as a journalist now for 38 years, professionally. Another 3 years at the Daily Mississippian. Another year at the Thunderbolt at St. Aloysius High School in Vicksburg, Mississippi. So I have to say that in all those years, all the people I've worked with, I don't think I've ever met a person more suited to be an editor or who enjoyed that opportunity more than Charles Overby did when he was the editor of the Clarion Ledger. He was the reason it all came together. As a good editor, he saw some good content. He saw some good, hard reporting that was going on. And he focused it. He put the right editors in charge of the reporters who, we didn't think our work needed that much editing, but of course it did. It always does. What I remember most about that time, it was just like frenetic. There was this day in and day out strategizing, how are we going to cover this, reporting what had happened, editing the stories, editorializing, and it all was for the goal of supporting Governor William Winter's education reform package. And it all resulted in that happening and taking place. We raised public opinion in support of this. We covered the legislature in a way they were not used to and not probably rarely have been covered before. They were used to going down to Jackson and voting, and you'd say, well, the subcommittee voted 4-3 and that died. No more kindergartens. Well, the first time we had a subcommittee vote like that, I went back to the office and Charles says, who voted against it? And I looked at my notes and I gave him the names. And he said, okay, put that in your story. Put their names in the story. And at the same time, he had an editorial written and he chastised these 4 people for being in what he called the Hall of Shame. And as more votes occurred over the next 2-week period, every time Charles' question was, who voted against? And they were added to the Hall of Shame. And it got to the point that legislators were stopping me and Cliff Trines, who covered the legislature with me, in the hallways and saying, stop this. You know, you shouldn't be doing this sort of stuff. My constituents are calling me and wondering about some of these things, and I don't like that. I mean, they literally would do this. There was one session when they finally got to the point where they were close to passing the legislation, and there was an executive committee meeting and trying to work out the details, and they had a pro forma session of the Senate. And the senators were getting up and just giving little speeches, and the press corps was lined up right here, right on the floor of the Senate, right next to them practically. And the Speaker pro tem got up and started lambasting the Clarion Ledger and turning and pointing at me. And there was applause from the Senate. And he was just going on and on about how atrocious our coverage was. And to the point that at the end he said, my final request is you other members of the media, would you please talk to your colleagues at the Clarion Ledger and tell them that this is irresponsible journalism. So for that irresponsible journalism, we won, I think, the highest honor that I can think of as a journalist. The gold medal was certainly not something we thought about the entire time we worked on this. It wasn't something that we were gearing up to do or anything like that. It was just good, hard work, following the story, holding people accountable. These are all the things you're learning, right, students? These are the things you're learning in your classes and that you're starting to excel at. I know you're excelling at it because I've been, I'd say, very proud last couple of weeks. National news coming out of Mississippi. And when I said at the USA Today and I Google what's the latest on Dan Jones, up pop stories from the Daily Mississippian, you know, giving me the latest on what happened. Key interviews with key players. That's good journalism. You should be proud of it. I do want to recognize, before I get going too far, Charlie Mitchell let me know about this award some time ago. He didn't know it at the time, but you sent me the word right about the last time I saw my mother before she died. And it was a sweet thing to share with her, and she really was delighted by it, and I was happy to share that with her. My family is here. My wife, Sissy, there she is. I have to thank Charles Overby for that. I once got up and started talking and never did introduce her. And so, thanks to Charles. That's Sissy. There's my daughters, Catherine and Corey, Kathy and Corey. My brothers, my brother James, sister Nancy, sister Carolyn. Some assorted cousins and in-laws, Susie Nashby Foote, the Robert Ireland family, the Tom Ireland family, Cy Ireland, all very close. And of course my mother-in-law, Happy Foote. Now, how's that for a name, Happy Foote? And when I told her that the university was awarding this honor to me, she said, well, what's it for? And I said, well, I think it's kind of like a Lifetime Achievement Award. And she said, oh, that's nice. But they didn't have to live with you, do they? So thank you all for living with me over the years. Let me go back to Sissy for a minute. She is an Ole Miss grad as well. Very successful career in museum consulting. She worked at the Smithsonian. She's worked at the museum in Washington. She runs her own business now that actually a few years ago helped create the B.B. King Museum over in Indianola. If you haven't seen it, Jim Abbott will take a busload of you over there and walk you through it. And one of the fun things is that we lean on each other so much. So I'd be sitting the day before this museum opened. I'm at the USA Today editing stories, and I get these emails from Sissy. Hey, this text panel, they're about to paint it on the wall, and I don't think the wording's right. Can you edit this? And well, what's the point? And then I'd send it back, and then 5 minutes later, here's another text panel. I think so-and-so, this needs a little work, And so anyway, she's kind of used me as a freelance with the emphasis on free editor, and it's been a real joy. A lot of people don't know she started in journalism, so maybe that's what works for us. One semester. That was enough. Something called deadlines seemed to get to her. I just want to say, too, I mentioned the Thunderbolt. I've got a couple of my buddies here from my high school class, Paul Ricconi, Donnie Piazza. We always thought we had such a great class there, and I think we really did. That they would travel up from where they live now to be with me tonight is very touching after so many years. Growing up in a military family, as I did, you're not quite sure where you're from, but when I landed in Vicksburg and met these guys and some others and got to spend a time there, it really stuck with me, and that became home for me as far as I was concerned. Now, I'm not sure how you get this award. I don't know if there's a secret committee or what really happens, and maybe I don't want to know. I don't want to thank two people who I know were at least telling me they were advocating that I get this. And one is not here with us tonight, but a longtime friend of mine, former AP writer, and he lives up in Richmond, Bob Lewis. And Bob's a great guy and a great journalist. And he called me up about 6 or 7 years ago and said, Fred, I can't believe you don't have the Silver M. And I said, well, I'm sorry. And he said, well, we got to do something about that. Do you mind if I nominate you? Well, no, go right ahead. And he did write a nominating letter, and I think that was very kind of him, and I was very happy to let him know early on that I had was going to be honored this way. The other person is someone that is here tonight, and someone who I owed so much to, and that is Jerry Hoare. And he was at lunch with me 2 or 3 years ago. And he leaned over and said, Fred, haven't we given you the Silver M? And I said, well, no, I'd be delighted, but no. And he said, well, I'm going to make sure we do something about that. So I know you have. Thank you, Jerry. I was remembering last night, the first and last courses I took at Ole Miss in journalism were taught by Jerry Hoare. The very first one was History of Journalism. And I took that in the summer of 1974. So I don't know if the students know much about the summer of 1974. Some of the gray hairs like me will remember what was going on. And you talk about the history of journalism. Watergate hearings, leading to the resignation of a president of the United States. So it was a wonderful time to enter the program here. There was so much enthusiasm about journalism. And I did manage to get an A in that course. Now, he tells me I earned it. And I will tell you, he is a rigorous teacher, and any grade you got from Dr. Hoare, you earned. The last course I took was feature writing, which is kind of a well-known course for those of us who were here in that time. It was a course I ended up getting a C in with some prompting from him. Now, this course is famous or infamous throughout the school because a number of people who have taken it have flunked it and gone on to great careers, but they had to retake it. One of them being Curtis Wilkie, who had a job all lined up, and he came and told this story to the students. I had a job all lined up, and then he flunked me, and I had to come back the next semester. So, middle of the semester, Dr. Hoare says, Fred, would you join me in my office after class? Which was a dreadful thing to hear. And we sat down, and he said, I hear you've gotten a job offer from the Clarion Ledger. And I said, yes, I'm very excited, looking forward to doing it. And he said, well, that's good, Fred. And then he opened up his grade book. And he looked down, and then he looked up with a rather pained expression and said, it appears you're several features behind, Fred. Please pick up the pace. Don't make me do what I did to Curtis Wilkie, to you. So that's the kind of prompting. He claims he doesn't remember this, but I do. The other person who really influenced me tremendously while I was here, and who is still a driving force for journalism education, and will be for as long as he's driving around, is Will Norton. He arrived at Ole Miss with a burst of energy, and it hasn't abated at all, from what I can tell, these many years later. This is the kind of teacher who Dr. Hoare, very courtly, very rigorous. Will Norton, this was a madman. He was swinging his arms and throwing things around, and he would project your stories up on the screen, and they were all marked up, and he'd walk over and all this stuff, and he even was known to hit students upside the head, which at least he told me it was by accident when he did it to me. I think he also knew I needed a little incentive to get to work. But as I recall, Vance reported You wrote 2 stories a week. You had a beat. You wrote 2 stories a week. By the end of the semester, you had to turn in a 3-part series on an issue that was important to that beat. So if you had student government, or if you had the athletic department, or whatever, you had to produce this copy, and you had to come up with a series, something to show that you had learned something from covering this. And that was really incredible. He and Jerry Hoare and Gail Denley, who sadly is not with us anymore, were 3 pillars who really had us all totally prepared to get out there and do things, and to enter a newsroom and excel. Not just enter the newsroom and maybe go write a story, but enter the newsroom and excel. And if you think about it, I don't know if you've done the math. You know, I wasn't 25, but I was 28 when the Pulitzer was awarded to us. I was 27 when I was reporting those stories. I was 5 years out of Ole Miss. So, you know, it can come quickly. It can come at a time when you don't expect it. You have to be ready. Fortunately, I trust with Will here and the other professors I've met and know, I know Curtis, Joe Atkins and I competed against each other down in Jackson. And Mr. Magazine, what more could you ask for? There are so many top quality folks here that I know you're getting the kind of education you need. You're learning the fundamentals. It's up to you to apply those things. You know, you can learn it all, but you've got to go out there and get after it. I talked to 2 of Curtis's classes today, and I told them, I said, I hope you're writing more than just what's required in this class, because that's the only way you're going to learn. You got to write and write and write again. And I said, you've got to write it, and then you've got to edit yourself. Before you turn it into your editor, edit yourself. Try to improve it every time before you turn it in. And so these are the kinds of things that I took from the program. I hope these are the things they were trying to get me to take from the program. I think they are. They are kind of fundamental. The Mississippian was just a fantastic experience for me. And I hope that all of you student journalists are either with the TV station or the radio station or the Mississippian or whatever outlet you like and are interested in. Because I spent most of my last year or 2 just there every night working on stories. And that's the life you're choosing. Journalists don't just go to work. You know, it's a passion. I firmly believe that. You've got it inside of you, and you want it. You want to get the story. You want to be the first. You want to be the best. And if you're not sure if you have that passion, push yourself now and find out. You know, it's a wonderful, wonderful profession. As Curtis pointed out, and they pay you. When you go out to have all this fun, and then they give you a paycheck. One of the things that horrified students here in the 70s with Jerry Hoare's feature writing course was the fact that he would ask that once he had graded your feature stories, you were supposed to send it out for publication. You had to select some reasonable places where they might run your article and send it off. And there were students going, whoa, Dr. Hoare, why would I want to do that? And he would say, why do you want to be in journalism? Don't you want to get published? And as a matter of fact, for many of the students at the time, the first paycheck they ever got was from sending one of those features off and getting that paycheck back. And it's just a great feeling when you've created something and someone will pay you for it. There's another group of folks, there's a couple of former colleagues of mine. Rick Cleveland's one of them, and I mentioned Joe, you know, and other journalists here who have spent great time working in journalism in Mississippi and elsewhere. And it's just so great to be part of the same profession with you. I love reading your work as well. I love seeing what you're up to. Some of you now writing books and other things. It's very inspiring, and I want you to know that just seeing what you do challenges me to be better. And it's just what I think a great dynamic that goes on in our business. When I left St. Aloysius, I wasn't going into journalism. I went to the U.S. Military Academy. I had an appointment as a cadet, and I was on the track to be a military officer and an engineer probably, if I had kept my grades up. But while I was there that first year, I kept reflecting back on how much I had loved working on the Thunderbolt, of all things. And I came to one of those momentous, kind of Robert Frost, two roads diverged in a wood type decisions. And I decided that I would resign my commission at the end of the year and pursue journalism. And you don't know that these things are going to work out right when you make a decision like that. And so all of you, I hope, particularly those of you who are just now studying and moving on and starting your lives and your careers, you're going to come up with decisions. You don't know. Take all the best information you can get and apply it. But there's nothing out there. There's no true path, as Charles said. You can't just set things out and say, I'm going to do this and this and this. It doesn't happen that way. What you can do is take the skills you learned and be mobile, be flexible, be adaptable. When I was studying at Ole Miss, there was no such thing as USA Today. I've spent 29 years working for a publication that did not exist at the time I was studying to be a journalist. So you don't know what options are out there. Today we're using Facebook to post our stories. Well, Facebook is old school. Only the old folks like me use Facebook, right? None of the young people. But we are tweeting out links to stories. We have the largest circulation newspaper in the country, and only 20% of our readership is in print. Our advertising is at the point where mobile and digital advertising is equaling what we're bringing in by the old cash cows of print. So we're having to rethink everything that we thought about the traditional ways. How do we get our content out there? And it's so exciting. I mean, it's great to be part of it. And I think that all of you who are studying journalism and thinking about careers in it, I envy you. I think it's a very exciting time. Come join us. We are hiring people like you who have these kinds of skills. And it's a time particularly when there's so much information and misinformation out there at everybody's fingertip in their smartphone or on the web, that to have people who are checking out the facts, reporting both sides, being balanced, stirring up the pot, these are important qualities and they're needed. And so I hope that you will continue. I am just, as you might have noticed, very moved by this tonight. This is the place that basically molded me into the journalist I am. So I want to say thank you sincerely for this honor, and hotty toddy.
So for the best of Meek, You have an example to follow. We expect you to be there and do real well and give back to the Meek School. Good night. Thank you.